part 6 of the head coach job approval rating series. There we go. And it's gotten contentious. It's gotten heated. The comment section has been on fire because, believe it or not, when you try and put letter grades on the approval ratings of head coaches, not everyone agrees on it. And I guarantee you that's the road we're about to head down tonight, because even me and producer Jesse did not agree on these ratings. But as he said, whose name is on the banner? Let's dive in. Dave Aranda at Baylor. I gave a flat-out B. Baylor. I'm going to do this a few times during this segment, so bear with me. Baylor. The reason I'm saying that and then pausing for emphasis is to be dramatic, but also to remind you, expectations are relative in college football to different programs. This is not Ohio State. This is Baylor. And so when we remember the 10-game improvement that Dave Aranda had from the 2020 season to the 2021 season, let's not be quick to forget that. This is not the kind of program where you're only as good as your latest season. This is Baylor. And while I think highly of Baylor and the potential of the program, what has history taught us about Baylor? I'm kind of like trying to make my closing argument in court here. 5 wins versus ranked teams that previous year, but they couldn't follow up this past year. And offense wasn't necessarily the problem defensively. They were off pace this past year. I'll admit that. That's why I'm not giving them an A. They had a 1-point loss to TCU, but you got to learn. You got to evolve. And I think that that's still what they're in the process of doing out there. So he needs a good year this season, or else I can't continue justifying a B. But I have made well known my affinity for Dave Aranda and therefore Baylor. I think they're going to be okay. So I'm giving them a B. What about Gus Malzahn at Central Florida? We're going to the G5 ranks, although they're about to be in the Big 12, so never mind. So I'm giving him a B+. Let me start off with the grade. I am giving Florida Gus a B+, which should be a T-shirt if it's not already. He had a shot now. They could have been an A-. He could have had an A- if only they'd won that conference championship game. And a reminder, the Every Given Saturday tour made a trip to New Orleans for the first Central Florida Tulane game this past year. Come to find out, I was watching a preview in that venue of the AAC championship game. It's just that the results were different that afternoon than they were when I was there. When I was there, Central Florida kind of sort of handled Tulane. But then Willie Fritz and the Green Wave there, they got their act together, and they were an angry, angry wave that afternoon because they took care of business, and 45-28 was the final. As a result, we still have a B+ grade on Gus Malzahn. Good energy around the program. Here is not the problem, but the hurdle. They are not acquiring talent quite at the level you need to be acquiring it to go to the Big 12 and compete at a high level. So that doesn't mean it won't change. It just means when we look at record and recruiting so far under Malzahn, albeit it's still brief, they were 58th, 52nd, 55th. Like, their average recruiting rankings in the 50s right now. I need it to be in the 20s. That's where I need it, unless you're just going to wholesale raid the transfer portal, which you can't ever plan on doing, and you don't ever know what it's going to provide you anyway. So, if he's listening, Coach, I'm giving you a B+, but I'm going to talk to you like my teachers used to talk to me. They used to tell me, now we both know I gave you benefit of the doubt on this. Don't make me look stupid. This is a progress report, basically. Come report card time, you better have your act together. And so, come this time next year, I want to see improvement in recruiting. Got to acquire that talent. But B+ for now. Parents are going to be proud. Mark Stoops. Producer Jesse has lost his mind because he thought Mark Stoops. Jesse, what did you think Mark Stoops deserved, by the way? You didn't tell me this. Okay, well, you're crazy. So he thought Mark Stoops of Kentucky deserved a C-. Producer Jesse, a young fawn, does not understand the history of Kentucky football. However, I, his paternal figure in this building, am here to set him on the straight and narrow. Kentucky is not a football program. Kentucky's not supposed to be good in football. Kentucky football is supposed to be what you do to pass the time until Kentucky basketball gets here. Now, the reason Mark Stoops would be furious at me and start throwing stuff at me if he was in here is because he has changed that. and he's made Kentucky a football also school. You're never going to do away with basketball there. It is a football also school. And that wasn't always the case. And so, like I did with Baylor, I'm going to say one more time, Kentucky. Kentucky. That's what we're talking about. So now that we dive in and I tell you why I'm giving him a B+, it's because even though they just went 7-6, that is 7 straight bowl games for who? Kentucky. You're not supposed to have a streak of bowl games at Kentucky. You're supposed to be the team just north of Vanderbilt, frankly, that everyone beats up on, and you ensure that they have at least 1 or 2 dialed up wins on their schedule. That's what Kentucky's supposed to be. Kentucky is not that anymore. You ask Tennessee and South Carolina how easy Kentucky has been to dispose of in the SEC East. He has 2 10-win seasons since 2018. Never supposed to be the case at Kentucky, ever. And so Mark Stoops, when he only wins 7 games, when they're only ranked in the 20s or the 30s in recruiting, I just yell back in your face, Kentucky! Yes, Kentucky, friends. Mark Stoops, B+. Now, the most interesting name, possibly since we've been doing this segment, is Chip Kelly at UCLA. 24 months ago, his name was on the hot seat. 2 years ago, people thought he was going to be out of a job. And yet, I could not give him anything lower than an A-. At the moment, job approval rating at this moment. Think about what he's done out there. He had UCLA very competitive this year. Who did they lose to? They lost to Oregon. They lost a close game to USC. I personally think Arizona played out of their minds when they happened to beat UCLA. But that's not what has them the most excited, because that's in the past. What has them the most excited, and why I keep saying the game feels like it's coming to Chip Kelly, is because Chip Kelly doesn't like to recruit. He's not a recruiter. He is not a guy that you would confuse with pounding the pavement and living in the living rooms, living on the sofas of high school kids. It's just not what he loves about the game. He wants the players delivered to him, and it doesn't even matter if he has the most talented roster, because he's a better coach than you, so he'll find a way to out-scheme you. But that pesky talent acquisition, once he came back to the college level at UCLA, it looked like it was going to be what held him back. Then things changed. NIL and the transfer portal has totally transformed the fortune of Chip Kelly at UCLA, because he doesn't have to spend half of his waking hours on the road recruiting high school kids. What he can do is he can go get Dante Moores. Now, even though that's not technically a transfer, when you leverage it with NIL and you understand what the name of the game is now in college football, it's come to Chip Kelly. It's just more in his wheelhouse. The way it works now is more in his wheelhouse, I think, than it ever has been. And that includes his time at Oregon. And so Chip Kelly, I think, is going to be fine. And as a result, I'm giving him an A- right now. When is the last time you felt excitement radiating off UCLA football? Because you feel it now. And I picture him in his office watching everyone else complain about how things are being changed in the sport and the sport's moving this direction, that direction. And if I were him, I'd just have a grin on my face that made someone want to punch me. Because if I'm Chip Kelly and I watch those changes and I watch what I'm allowed to do now and I look where I'm geographically located, the sport's coming to me. Sometimes it goes away from you the longer you're in the game. And sometimes it comes to you. And that's exactly what's happening with Chip Kelly right now. A-. A- for Chip Kelly.
Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me, that's how we keep this entire thing free.